Those of you that don't know, because I know there's several new folks here, my name is Brandon. I'm the youth pastor here, and y'all have met Harley. She's our amazing youth intern. We're glad you guys are here. We know this is the start of a new year, and there's a lot of mixed feelings about it. Some of the things have been great, going back to school. Some of the things have not been so good. So listen, we hope you'll make this week, Wednesday's a part of your week, and honestly Sundays too. That's the best way to start off the week is in God's house. We're going to be doing a series called Why We Do What We Do. Gage, if you don't mind, can you turn my mic down? I feel like I'm talking like I have a sinus infection or something. Do I sound weird through the mic to you guys, or is it just me? Okay, it's just me. Good. All right. I am talking out loud right now. It's not the voice in my head. Okay. All right. Very cool. All right. So everybody say why we do what we do. And you're like, okay, what's this series about? Is this about me or whatever? Y'all, this is why we do what we do as a student ministry. Why we do what we do as a church. Why we do what we do as a follower of Jesus. And I realize you may not consider yourself a follower of Jesus. Or you're not sure, or it's not even a thing for you to think about right now. But we believe in Christ, and the majority of us are like, we know Jesus and all that. And so we're going to be talking about three big things we do. And it's stuff some of you heard before. You need to hear it again. There's some of you are brand new and you're like, this is like brand new stuff. So I hope you'll take a handout, take a pen, make some notes. If you need to get up and get a pen, they're all here in the center section. And I'm saying this more for our sixth graders' benefit because you guys are brand new. How about these sixth graders, y'all? A great group. You guys can come grab a Bible and kind of use it if you need to kind of take notes. It's kind of hard to write on your leg. I mean, some of you are good at it. But yeah, go ahead. You can get up and go do that. That's fine. Okay, come get a pen, do whatever you can, go order a pizza, whatever. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk tonight about belonging, okay? Super, super important. Why we do what we do, y'all, the first thing we want is for people to feel like they belong here. Now, in our church as a whole, but in our student ministry, y'all, we hope that you feel that way about your life group. We know that sometimes people feel that way and sometimes they don't feel that way. But we're going to look at some ways to help us feel like, be more of a belonging group. Where do we get all this stuff from while we do what we do? We get it from Matthew chapter 28. So here's what's happening in Matthew 28. Jesus has died on the cross. He rose from the grave. He's been walking the earth for several days, and he's about to ascend into heaven. He is not coming back until the end times. This is his last direct words to his followers. So he goes up on a mountain, and his close followers are around him, and he turns to them before he ascends into heaven, and he tells them, I want you to do these things. Y'all, I don't know if you've ever had a parent that went on a trip or went away for the day, and I want you to do these 4 things or 3 things or 2 things. Most of the time, they're pretty serious about it. I know that I've had friends that went off overseas to fight a war, and the last thing they told me, because they didn't know if they were going to come back or not, hey, I want you to remember this and do this and pray for this and be this. And they were serious about it, y'all. These are weighted words that Jesus has given us, and they are commands. They're not options. We call it the Great Commission. Commission means sending out. And it comes from Matthew 28. And this is what Jesus said. He says, hey, everybody, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. The reason Jesus was obedient. He died, even a sinner's death, even though he was not a sinner. He died on the cross, and God raised him from the dead. And he walked the planet, and he's about to ascend. And he said, because of that, the Father's given me the keys, the authority. I have the authority to give this order. This is not what I wish you would do if I was in charge. I'm telling you because I am in charge. That's what he's saying. And this is what he says. Go therefore, make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Teach those new disciples to observe everything I've commanded you. And remember, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. Man, I love the last line of that. I didn't underline it. It's the best line. But he gives us 3 things. He says, make disciples. Disciples a student. A follower of Christ. In other words, tell people about me so that they might give their life to Christ. Evangelism. Tell them about me. Share the message. He says to baptize them. Like literally dunk them in the water. And we're going to talk a little bit about that here in a second. And then teach those new disciples to do everything that I have taught you to do. Like the things that I've been teaching you for 3.5 years, turn around and teach these new disciples those things. Repeat what you learned from me, what you saw in me, what you heard from me, what you observed in me. Well, this is a big deal. So he's given us 3 commands. And when somebody gives you a command, they expect an outcome. I don't know if you know this or not. Like my mom, when I was a little kid, Saturdays were awful because I wanted to watch cartoons, because back then, the only time you could watch cartoons pre-internet, pre-Cartoon Network, pre-whatever, Disney, because it wasn't around, is Saturday morning cartoons. I mean, you had Scooby-Doo and the Smurfs, and Pac-Man had a cartoon, believe it or not. It was weird. Anyway, and so I was all about the cartoons, and my mom was all about the cleaning the house. She'd been working all week. House was a disaster. Got to get the house clean. And she would come out with command and command and command and command. And it just ruffled my feathers. I don't want to do that stupid thing. I want to eat Fruit Loops and watch Papa Smurf. That's all I wanted. Y'all don't even know who Papa Smurf is, do you? Some of you are looking at me like, what? Do y'all know who the Smurfs are? Okay, good. All right, okay, there's been a movie recently. Okay, the real Smurfs, the cartoons. Not the, okay. Okay, all right. Not the Smurf that I saw at Times Square, okay, because he was weird. Okay, so listen to me. This is important, okay? Mom would say, do this, do this, do this, do this, and I would just get so frustrated, and it hit me one day. It took me a few years. Do you know what my mom really wants? My room to be clean, the house to be clean. And if I understand the outcome, I can swallow the command a little bit better. Y'all, Jesus, when he tells us these 3 things, you may say, man, Jesus is telling me to go do this and do this and do this. Y'all, he's wanting to see an outcome. Now, we can't make the outcome, but we can do the thing he told us to do and let him deal with the results. So what does he tell us to do? 3 quick things, 3 commands, 3 outcomes. He says, I want you to make disciples. Why would he say go and make disciples? Because he wants people to believe, okay? That's why. When he says, go and tell people about me, he wants us to do that so that people might believe in him just like we do if you know Christ. And he also says, hey, I want you to not only tell them, once they believe, I want you to baptize them. Literally baptize them. Dunk them in the water. Your baptism is a symbolic picture of what happens in a person's heart when they give their life to Christ. Baptism doesn't save you. It doesn't make God love you more, but it is you identifying with Christ because Christ identified with you as a sinner when he got baptized. He was not a sinner, but he did what sinners do and he got baptized. When you go down into the water, it's a picture, it's a symbol of death to sin and self. And when you come out of the water, it's a picture, symbol of a new life in the Lord. And one day we're going to be buried when we die, and we're going to be raised to walk in a new life. It's a kind of a dual picture. This doesn't happen when we're dunked in the water, but it is a picture of it. But y'all, baptism even has a bigger meaning. Baptism had to do with belonging in the New Testament. And you're like, what do you mean by that? When you were baptized in the New Testament, it was in a very public place. They didn't have running water in buildings. So it was in a ditch at the Jordan River, in a lake, in a pond. And everybody saw it. People going on their way to the market saw Johnny getting baptized. Oh, he's a part of that group. He belongs to that group. He's separate now. He's come out of the world and way. He's no longer a part of us. He's a part of them. When you were baptized, it was like saying this. Everybody look. It was like this. You're now one of us. Okay? I got to tell you, I'm a big New Orleans Saints fan, and I was at a Saints-Rams game back 4 years ago. It was when they were both undefeated. It was the best game I've ever seen in person of any football anywhere. I mean, I've seen them better than that on TV, but I was in the stands. It was spectacular. Saints ended up coming back from behind and winning that game. They stayed undefeated. The Rams lost their first game of the season. That was the year of the no call, if you know anything about it, but we won't go there. But here's the thing. This is what we're all wearing our Saints stuff. We're in home, in the Superdome. We get up and we're leaving, and some Rams fans decided to talk some smack, okay? They just decided to be Rams fans, okay? If you're a Rams fan, the altar's open. You can just come on, all right? But I'm just telling you, they were talking some smack, and so here's what happened. We happen to come out of the stands into the concourse area, and we're trying to find our way to go down and get out of the dome. And some Rams fans started yelling and jeering at me and my boys and my wife. And I'm like, oh, no, they did not. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do, man? I mean, these are big guys. You know, they're drunk, too. And, you know, what am I going to do? Before I could do anything, all of these Saints fans saw that they were picking on Saints fans. And Who Dat Nation got riled up. I'm talking about before I was like, sir, you insulted my wife. You know, before I could do that, it was, who dat? Get all out of here, and shoved him. And I was just like, yeah, you take that. And I walked off, you know. You want to know why? We belonged. They had my back. True story, same game. I'm going down this time, you know, in the middle of the game to go get something to drink. And there's this big guy. I mean, this is a big guy. And I accidentally bumped him. He turned around and he looked at me and he was about to, and he saw my jersey and goes, who dat? I was like, who dat, bro? Nice bicep. Listen, guys, listen to me. This is huge. We're gonna go here in a minute. Y'all, we better have each other's back as Christians. We need to stop talking bad about each other, tearing each other down. We need to have each other's back. Baptizing them is more than just getting dunked in the water. We're a part, okay? Here's the other command and outcome. Jesus said, don't just tell them about me so they'll believe. Baptize them so they'll belong. Teach them so they'll become more like me. Teach them how to live like Christians. Teach them how to be like Jesus. And that is what's becoming. So that's belong, believe, become is what I did it out of order on purpose, which you'll know why in a minute. But God wants us to believe, belong, and become, okay? And so here's what this translates at, okay? I hope you write this down. It's the next column. God wants you and me to believe in Jesus, number one. We should believe in Jesus. And I don't mean like believe like he's Santa. I'm talking about put our faith and trust in that he died for me. He paid for my sins. God not only wants you to believe in Jesus, get this, he wants you to belong to Jesus. He wants you to be a part of the family of God. I don't mean I check a box because I went to 10:30 worship. I'm talking about I am not just going to church. I am a part of the capital C church. And then here's the cool thing, which we're going to talk about in week 3. He wants you and me to become like Jesus. Man, that's a good one. Y'all, getting saved is not just about going to heaven. You guys know that? When you get saved, the Bible says you're going to go to heaven. But that's not the deal. Listen, are you listening? Heaven's real. It's going to be amazing, better than anything I can ever describe. Even better than the Bible can describe because our brains can't wrap around it. But becoming like, being a Christian is not just going to heaven, it's also becoming like Christ in the here and now. It's growing. And y'all, that's not always fun. It's hard. But we'll talk about it in week 3. So you guys kind of get the idea. This is where we get this from. This is where we're going over the next 3 weeks. But real quickly tonight, I want to talk about belonging. And why are we talking about belonging? Isn't that second on the list? Here's why. Because sometimes you got to belong before you can believe. Sometimes you've got to belong before you can believe. Here's what I'm not saying. Let's baptize you, then you'll get saved later. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about sometimes you've got to belong to a group of believers before you'll ever listen to what they have to say. So if you're here tonight and you're new and you're like checking this stuff out, it's okay. We welcome that. We want you to. You don't have to have all your stuff in order to be a part of our group. Now, we're never going to affirm sin. We're never going to say that something sinful is good. But I can tell you we're going to love you no matter who you are and what you do. That's what we're going to do. That's what Jesus asked us to do. But sometimes you got to belong before you can believe. One of my favorite movies, it's a football theme tonight. It's almost like football's in the air. Somebody hug my wife. She's, doesn't like football, but anyway, bless her. Anyway, but here's a football thing. One of my favorite movies, and by the way, one of Christy's favorite movies too, is The Blind Side. Yes. Y'all know The Blind Side? Yes. If you don't know this movie, it's the movie where about a real life true story about Michael. True story. We'll get there in a second. About Michael Orr, who's an at-risk kid that starts going to this private school. And he has nobody to help him. And he basically adopts him, brings him into the fold. And they feed him, they give him the truck. Family. He ends up going to Ole Miss. That's the Toohey family. Some of y'all know him. In fact, what is it? Is it RJ? Is that the little kid in the movie? SJ. He was actually an assistant for Arkansas for a while. I don't know where he's at now. Maybe he's back at Ole Miss. I don't know. At any rate, crazy movie. There's so many things in that movie. I just want to show you one little clip, if you've never seen it, that pulls at your heartstrings a little bit. Because, I mean, this is tough. But this movie is about belonging. It's about, you don't look like us. You're not from the same part of town as us. But you're one of us. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. But watch this. This gets me every time I watch it.
Over here you have a desk, chest of drawers, you have a nightstand, light, alarm. Oh, and Sean says all the pro athletes use futons if they can't find a bed big enough, so I got you one of those. Of course, the frame was heinous. It's not about to let that in my house, but I got you something nicer.
It's mine?
Yes, sir. What?
Never had one before.
What, a room to yourself?
A bed.
Well, you have one now.
Wow. Never had a bed before. Such a great story about belonging. Until this week. If you're like, what are you talking about? So Michael Orr goes on to play NFL football. I think he was at the Ravens. He may have been at another team, but I know he was at the Ravens. And he ended up retiring. He announced this week that he was never really adopted, that the Tooheys made up a lie, took advantage of him, and took all his money. That the blind side is not true. Okay. If you had the X app, you would know. Okay. Sorry. I'm sorry I brought that up. Okay, listen to me. Y'all listen to me. Listen, this is important. There's some dispute that he's lying too. The Tooheys are saying that's not true. We didn't make money off him. I don't know what's true. I can tell you it ruined a good story for me. Maybe he's lying. Maybe he's telling the truth. Maybe part's true, part's not. It took a story about belonging and it made it, ugh. Because that's what the world does about belonging. Guys, you're asking this question. I know you are. It's this question: where do I fit in? It's not on your sheet. It's okay. You guys are great. You're like, you can write it down. But guys, you're asking that question: where do I fit in? Who am I? You want to fit in so badly that you'll wear Crocs. I mean, gosh. Y'all. Sorry. But you do. I'm sorry. I got MC going now. But seriously though, y'all, we all want to fit in. We all want to have a place and feel like we belong somewhere. Y'all, to a point where sometimes we get in with the wrong group because they accept us. And they're going down a road that's leading to destruction and we're going along with them. But you know what? At least they love me. At least they get me. Everybody look up here for a minute. Listen to me. I want you to listen to my heart. This should be the most accepting place on the planet. You listening to me? We need to have the most accepting place. Accepting doesn't mean affirming sin. Accepting doesn't mean watering down the gospel or making Jesus into our BFF because he's just like us and does everything we want. That's not the Bible. Accepting is, I love you no matter what. I don't have to agree with you to love you. We all want a place to fit in. Did you guys know that the disciples that Jesus called to follow him for 3.5 years, they belonged way before they believed? They followed Jesus for 3.5 years and didn't get it until Jesus died and rose from the grave. Some of them didn't get it to the point where they betrayed him. Some of them didn't get it and they denied him 3 times. Some of them argued about who's the greatest in the kingdom, me or you. They didn't get it. But then they did get it. Guys, it's okay to belong. But hopefully it leads to belief. I want to talk to you very fast about a story. Even if you're not a churchgoer, you've probably heard this story. I can sum it up like this. Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and a wee little man was he. He climbed up in because he was the shortest person in the world. I just made that part up. I don't know. He was short because he wanted to be able to see. And then Jesus comes up and says, Zacchaeus, come down. I'm going to your house today. That's literally the story. I learned that when I was like 4, and I've forgotten some of it, but that's it. Jesus made a point to make a person who the world hated belong. Why did they hate Zacchaeus? Let's look. Zacchaeus 19. Luke 19, 1 through 2. Jesus entered Jericho, made his way through the town. There was a man there named Zacchaeus. He was say it with me, y'all, man, great, not a good job. I mean, good job if you want to be rich, bad job if you want to be loved. He was the chief tax collector, and he had become what? Let me tell you how he became rich. He cheated people. Because tax collectors were Jews who sold out to the Roman government, who was in charge of the land at that time, and they would charge the Roman taxes, charge more than the Roman taxes, and pocket the difference. And they all did it. All the tax collectors did it. Zacchaeus wasn't just some ordinary tax collector. He was the what tax collector? Which means he was over other tax collectors. So he not only skimmed, he skimmed some more. He got some from the tax collectors. You cheat, give me some, He was the mob boss. Okay? People hated him. They knew who he was. They looked at him as a sellout. They looked at him like you turned your back on your own people just to get rich. Let's keep moving. Verse 3. Zacchaeus tried to get a look at Jesus, but he was too short to see over the crowd. If you're vertically challenged here tonight, you should love this story, okay? I mean, you should just totally, I get it. I mean, they put the light switch, or whatever. Okay, let's keep moving. So he ran ahead and he climbed a sycamore fig tree beside the road, for Jesus was going to pass by. So Zacchaeus is like, okay, Jesus is coming. I've heard about this dude. I got to check this guy out. And he goes, and I can't see. Sycamore tree. And he climbs up so he can get a bird's eye view, literally. Okay? Here's a side point. Don't have time to get into this deep. Y'all listening to me? We often get in the way of people seeing Jesus. Who got in the way? The crowd got in the way. The problem was so many people trying to see Jesus that Zacchaeus couldn't see Jesus. Hey, we can get so busy following after Jesus that we Christians, listen to me in the room, we forget to go, oh, maybe I need to get out of the way and let him see Jesus. Maybe I don't need to be all that. Maybe I need to look around and go, oh my gosh, she can't see Jesus. So, do people have to crawl over you to get to Jesus? That's a good question to ask. It's a very honest, tough question to ask. Let's keep moving. Verse 5. When Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus. He called him by name. Zacchaeus, quick, come down. I must be a guest in your home today. Zacchaeus quickly climbed down, and he took Jesus to his house in great excitement and joy. Guys, there's 3 things that Jesus did to help Zacchaeus belong. And we need to do the same thing if we want people to feel like they belong to our church, to our youth group, to our life group. Okay? Real fast. Number 1, Jesus noticed. Y'all, this is the biggest step. Most of us don't realize there are people around us who don't feel like they belong. This is so important. Y'all, if you're busy, you're probably not noticing. If you're insecure about your own self, where am I going to sit? Who am I going to be with? What am I going to do? You're not noticing around. Maybe the bravest prayer you can pray tonight is, Jesus, would you give me your eyes to notice what I'm missing, who I'm missing? Because and I say I'm guilty too. I'm a busy guy. Sometimes I walk by people who are hurting and I don't know and I don't pay attention. It's not because I don't love them, but I don't see them. It's hard to love people you don't see. You might want to write that down. It's just hard. Guys, we need to be more intentional. That's why I'm bringing this up. And I said we all do. It says when Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus. Jesus could have just kept looking at the crowd. Everybody's making a noise. All the action's down here. Jesus' eyes should have been here. But he was like, hey, what you doing up there, bro? Get down, man. He looked up and saw, he's really trying to see me. So Jesus really saw him. I want to encourage you, if you're really trying to find God, just know that God's really trying to find you. If you draw close to God, He'll draw close to you. Guys, I hesitate mentioning these 3 rules because I normally don't do this on a Wednesday. I normally talk about this on a Sunday night, and you're like, why do you talk about it on a Sunday night? Come this Sunday night, and you'll find out why. But this week, I'm going to break the rule, which is not one of the 3 youth group rules. It's just a personal rule. But we do have 3 youth group rules. 6th graders, you might want to write these down. These are important. And this is, I'm being serious. I'm saying this because this is a charge for all of us to notice. Number 1 youth group rule is this. An alone person who comes into our building and they're sitting by themselves, it's an emergency. And you're like, whoa, what are you talking about, emergency? Guys, don't let people come in here and sit by themselves. Don't do it. And you may be a loner type and you don't want people to talk to you. Listen to me. When people come to talk to you, they're not trying to get all up in your business. You're going to go further with a group than you ever will on your own. God never meant for you to carry that hurt alone. So listen to me. This is a challenge to us believers in the room for sure. When somebody's by themselves, it's okay to go up and talk to them. And if they don't want to talk, that's fine. But don't ignore them. Don't walk by them. Okay? When you go to school, look for the people sitting by themselves. I mean, you're like, no, I'm sitting where I'm supposed to sit. Okay. If you want God to use you, ask Him to give you His eyes. But when He shows you something, what are you going to do with it? An alone person is an emergency. Here's another thing. This is super important. My friends can wait. But I gotta go get with my fam, you know. I gotta go with my 4, you know, my posse, whatever you call it. I don't even know what you call it. Okay, but you know what I'm talking about because we all do it. Oh, okay. Where's my? Okay, there they are. Okay, thank God. I'm good. I'm good. Great. Good. Y'all, they can wait. You just saw somebody by themselves. What are you gonna do? Here's another thing. Introduce a newcomer to somebody else. When you do talk to somebody, you know what the greatest thing you can do? Don't just say, hey, it's been nice chatting with you. Say, hey, here's my buddy Hannah. here's my boy Austin, man. He's awesome. Introduce them to somebody else. Talk to them. Best lifeguard ever, okay? How many saves did you have? Like 20? Okay. Let's don't go there. Okay, all right. But seriously, introduce them to somebody, y'all. It is so cool. I mean, I've been in circles where I've been meeting, other ministers, and I feel kind of like the odd guy out. And the best thing ministers can do is like, hey, let me introduce you to my so and so. That's a good thing. Okay. Jesus noticed. Number 1. Number 2. What did He do with Zacchaeus? He not only noticed, Jesus called him by name, y'all. It was personal. Jesus personally said, hey, Zacchaeus, do you know that your most important possession is your name? You may hate your name, I don't know. But it's yours. When Jesus, listen to me, this is for free. The devil calls you by your sin, Jesus calls you by your name. If your temptation is to say, oh, there's that girl that sleeps around. Oh, there's that dude that thinks he's all that in a bag of chips. You're calling people by something, maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe they don't. But you think they do. Instead, call them by their name. They're people made in the image of God. They may not be acting like God right now. They may be so far from God. But y'all, call them by name. Call them. Talk to them. Be personal with them. Y'all, this Sunday night, our ministry night is going to be all about point number 2. We're literally going to be talking to people by name, praying for them, writing cards to them. We may even be talking directly to some of them. You should come and check it out. Here's the third thing Jesus did. He not only noticed and called, he invited. He invited, y'all. He said, hey. Now, he did what my mama would have gotten on to me when I was a little kid doing. He invited himself over. Okay, my mama had this thing. If I ever said, hey, Mom, I'm going over to Chris's house. Mom was like, oh, no, you did not. You did talk to Chris's mom? Yeah, she's cool. Mom would not let me go. Chris had to come to Mom and say, hey, Miss Massey, can Brendan come over? You know. Jesus invited himself over, but the point was not where he was. The point was who he was with, and he was going to be with Zacchaeus. Y'all, do you realize that this was not expected? Who is he hanging out with, y'all? The who? The dude with a reputation. I hate that guy. How could he hang out with that guy? I mean, does he not know who he is? I mean, I thought Jesus knew everything. Does he not know? This he cheats, man. Jesus said, hey, I want to hang out with you. Y'all, the first step to change is often an invitation. I want to read something that I literally said in 2020, coming out of the pandemic. And how do I know I said it? Because I used part of this sermon from 2020, just being honest with you. I remember reading this. Don't let the pandemic sideline you. This is an opportunity to share the gospel in a way that your generation may never see again. I believe there's a harvest of souls coming. God is laying the groundwork. We can either join him or ignore him right now. Y'all, we have seen a harvest of souls. There are some of you are not coming here in 2020. God got a hold of you and you know Jesus now. We've been baptizing people left and right. And we're not bragging on us, bragging on Jesus. I don't think Jesus is done. I don't think Jesus is like, oh, that's great. We've reached enough people. We can all just hang out and do what we want until I come back. You know, I think there's a lot. For every one of you we baptize, there's 15 of students that don't know Christ in our area. Guys, invitations are everything. To reach people no one's reaching, we got to do what no one's doing. So here's what happened. Jesus got criticized. Zacchaeus got criticized. Zacchaeus pipes up and says, okay, Jesus, if I've cheated anybody, I will pay them back 4 times what I took from them. Which meant he's going to be paying up because he probably cheated. But you know what? He didn't care because he knew that money can't buy what Jesus was giving him, which was he belonged. Where do I fit? I want to close reading a picture of what it looks like when the church loves each other and loves Jesus to the point where no one wants to go home. No one wants to leave. I don't know if you've ever been in that position, but this is what it looks like. In Acts chapter 2, verse 42, it says, all the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship. Everybody say fellowship. This is so super important. And to the sharing of meals, including the Lord's Supper, and to prayer. And a deep sense of awe came over them all. And the apostles performed many miracles and wonders. And all the believers met together in one place and shared everything they had. They sold their property and possessions. They shared the money with those in need. They worshiped together at the temple every day. They met in homes for the Lord's Supper. They shared their meals with great joy and generosity, all the while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of the people. And here's the key. You listening? And the Lord, and each day the Lord added to their what? Those who were being saved. See, I used to think the way you save people is to evangelize. Do you know the way that you reach people? Is to build fellowship. People aren't going to believe until they feel like they belong. Belonging is everything. That's why the devil is attacking our fellowship. That's why he would rather us gossip about people than to reconcile with people. He would rather us hold a grudge than to give it to God and let God make it right. Because he's attacking fellowship. Because fellowship, man, the joy of our Lord is their strength, and the devil knows it. So you might want to write this down, y'all. To belong, it's the same thing as having fellowship. Guys, our youth group has had its ups and downs. Probably will again. But we need to work on this. We need to be aware of it. We need to do whatever we can to not quench the Holy Spirit. Let's bow our heads and our hearts. Jesus, I want to thank you so much for tonight. I want to thank you for your word. I want to thank you for the story of Zacchaeus and how you showed what it looks like to love people where they are, to make them feel like they belong. God, I pray as we go to our groups that you would do an incredible work.